Respected Dharma Master, fellow practitioners and guests, Amitabha. In a land and time very distant from us, two men encountered one another. One was a Brahmin, a Hindu priest. The Brahmin realized that the man he was looking at was no ordinary being, and so he inquired, "Are you a god?" "No, Brahmin." "Are you an angel?" "No, Brahmin." "Are you a spirit?" "No, Brahmin." "What are you then?" "I am awake," replied the Buddha. By his own assertion, the Buddha was not a god. He was an ordinary man, living in a world engulfed in greed, anger, and ignorance. 2,500 years ago, when the Buddha was crisscrossing what is now India and Nepal, and teaching what he had awoken to, the world was similar in many ways to our world today. There were centers of great culture, and there were lands of stagnation. There were rulers with great power who thirsted for even more. And there were oppressed people who only wanted to live in peace. There were men who said that they alone held the key to spiritual secrets. And there were those who searched for different answers. There were people who had great wealth, and there were those who had nothing. There were people who said, "We must change," and there were those who refused to change. Perhaps that distant land and time are not that distant after all. Greed, anger, ignorance, and delusion are still very much with us today. In the world today, we hear so much about conflict. Economic conflict between the developed countries and third world countries. Cultural conflict between the East and the West. Sectarian conflict in the Middle East, ethnic conflict in Africa. So much pride and anger. So much arrogance, so much pain. When even government leaders cannot peacefully resolve the world's problems, what are we supposed to do? How can we, individuals without power or influence, hope to accomplish anything positive in the face of such fury and intolerance? In our technologically advanced world, is there anything we can learn from this man who rode away one night, leaving behind a life of sensory indulgence, privilege, and power, to spend the rest of his life walking barefoot across India and Nepal, sleeping under trees and begging for his food? Is there anything we can learn from this man who awakened to the truth 2,500 years ago? If we view Buddhism merely as a religion filled with rituals and go no further, no, we will not benefit. Viewing Buddhism in this way, we may put much energy into creating the perfect practice space, and we may run the risk of becoming engrossed in the accoutrements of practice, robes and meditation cushions, incense and musical instruments. Approaching Buddhism in this way, our time will be spent capturing the appearance of Buddhist practice rather than its essence. If we view Buddhism solely as a study of morality, concentration, and wisdom, then again, no, we will not benefit. If we merely study Buddhism, we will read many books and gain knowledge, but we will not experience and we will not savor the joy of the Dharma. The Dharma is the universal truth that the Buddha himself experienced and then related to us. If we only read about Buddhism, we will have misused our time by intellectualizing the teachings instead of practicing them. Just studying Buddhism or just studying any faith tradition or ethical teaching will do nothing to solve our problems. We need to act. But how? If we concurrently view Buddhism as a teaching of morality, concentration, and wisdom, and we practice it, yes, then and only then can Buddhism truly help us. Only when we experience what the Buddha was talking about will we begin to benefit ourselves and our world. Where do we start? Two fundamental precepts from the Buddha are that we should do no harm and we should purify our minds. He did not tell us to instruct others how to correct their faults. He did not say we should force others into thinking as we do, or belittle others to make ourselves look superior or wiser. He told us that if we wish to awaken, we would need to stop blaming others for our problems, to stop arguing with others, and to stop judging others. Instead, we need to look at ourselves and assume full responsibility for what happens to us. We reap what we sow. Our lives today are the result of what we thought, said, and did in the past. What we think, say, and do today will likewise shape our future. If we harm others, we will be harmed. If we love others, we will be loved. If we have peaceful thoughts, we will have peace. Thus, everything we do matters. This non-sectarian, natural law of causality, the reality that everything will come back to us full circle, is perfectly fair, and the workings of the law of karma are inescapable. The Buddha told us not to harm others. How do we accomplish this? Morality, which is to do to others as you would have them do to you. The Buddha expressed the same idea when he said, "Do not hurt others with that which hurts yourself." Muhammad said, "None of you is a believer until you love for your neighbor what you love for yourself." Hillel said, "What is hateful to you, do not do to others." Confucius said, "What you do not wish for yourself, do not do to others." If you would not like someone to lie to you, do not lie to others. If you would be unhappy if someone took something from you, then do not take anything without the owner's permission. If you would be upset if someone spoke harshly to you, then do not speak harshly to others. The reality is that there is little we can do to quickly and easily bring about change on a global scale. But there is a great deal that each of us can do and must do to change ourselves. The only way to achieve world peace is to create peace within each of us. If there are fires to the north, south, east, and west of us, do not expect not to get burned. A person surrounded by fire will suffer. If we want a harmonious society, we must create harmony in our family, in our workplace, and in our communities. Instead of being consumed by the fire of our craving and anger, we need to create peace. When we listen to such words, we are moved, and we nod our heads in agreement. Treating others as we want to be treated sounds wonderful. These truthful words fall like raindrops on hearts that are thirsting for the truth, for gentleness and serenity. They fill us with joy. But the minute we stop focusing on the words, we forget. So quickly, the awareness and joy fade as we are pulled back into everyday life. Perhaps it will happen even as we drive home tonight. How easy it will be to slip back into selfishness and forget to treat the other person on the road as we wish to be treated. How readily will we make a thoughtless remark about someone and inadvertently pollute our mind and the minds of those with us, forgetting that we do not want others injecting their harsh words into our peaceful thoughts. We will carelessly intrude on the peaceful thoughts of others. To practice not harming others, we need concentration, the ability to focus on our chosen task. in not harming others and thus not harming ourselves. We need to focus on what we are thinking and on what we are about to do. We rarely do either mindfully. There are far too many distractions around us. There is so much we want to learn, so many toys we want to possess, so many experiences we want to have. We want. Our desires pull us first in one direction and then almost immediately in another. What we wanted so urgently last year, we want to replace this year. We are pulled by our cravings, so we remain prisoners of our own attachments and aversions. Little wonder we cannot concentrate, but learn to concentrate we must. Unless we learn to be masters of our minds, we will continue to be slaves of our emotions. Do not harm any living being. The Buddha showed us how. Once we begin to rein ourselves in by living morally, we will commit fewer wrongdoings. In this way, we will be less plagued by guilt. We will react less from emotions and more from reason. Harming others will result in our worrying less. This will enable us to focus our minds on what we choose. As we progressively become calmer, our concentration will enable us to touch our innate wisdom. This is the wisdom that the Buddha experienced and then spoke of. It already lies deep within us. But we have yet to enter, much less function from, this clear, intuitive wisdom. As caring members of society, it is our responsibility to practice the virtues of harmlessness, compassion, and equanimity. These virtues lie deep within us, within our true nature. This true nature is the same as that of all Buddhas. The true nature of Buddhas, their very essence, is loving kindness, altruism, and tranquility. These qualities lie at the core of their being and ours. Although such virtues are already within each of us, all too often they lie dormant. Why? Because we are thoroughly engrossed in foolish attempts to satisfy our personal desires. We are convinced that our way of doing things is correct, and that our happiness lies in possessions and power. And so we are intent on getting others to do things our way and on accumulating wealth and influence. Although we have the same true nature as the Buddhas, we fail to experience the wonders of this true nature. We consistently fall back into our bad habits. Thus we end up acting from our human nature, all the while burying our true nature deeper within us. The Buddha knew the problems of humanity. He had experienced them. But he overcame these problems. He awoke through the practice of morality, concentration, and wisdom. He experienced the truth of the cosmos. He found the path to awakening and then left clear guidelines for us to follow after him. But that was all he could do. Leave guidelines. As compassionate as Buddhas are, they are unable to go against the natural laws of the universe. They know the truth. And they know that the natural laws that govern the universe cannot be changed. Not even by a Buddha. So as much as they want to help us, Buddhas cannot undo what we have already set into motion. I created my life. Only I can change it. You created your life. Only you can change it. Others created their own lives. Only they can change those lives. Our lives today are the direct result of what we thought, what we said, and what we did in our yesterdays. Our lives today are the direct result. And as we have learned, our todays, just like our yesterdays, are lived in this self-same world, a world engulfed in greed and anger, enveloped in ignorance and delusion. Greed is our endless craving. And anger is what arises when our greed is unfulfilled. Ignorance is our lack of understanding of the underlying truths of what is happening to us and around us. Delusion is mistaking wrong ideas for the truth. Due to our ignorance and delusion, we believe in ideas that are wrong and reject those that are correct and beneficial. We do so not because we are bad people. Lazy, yes. Easily distracted, yes. Impatient and judgmental, yes. But because we are bad people, no. Lacking the ability to clearly discern right from wrong, we act foolishly. In most instances, our intentions are not to harm others. We are just so easily caught up in our desires, our wants, wishes, expectations. When these are unfulfilled in our impatience and disappointment, we give in to anger, which arises from within us. uninvited and unnoticed. So easily, so automatically. We feel resentment, irritation, if not outright rage. In the grip of these negative emotions, we react to other people, to other situations, not out of the wish to help others, but from the compelling urge to protect ourselves. Anger arises when we are selfish, when we are only thinking of what we want but failed to obtain. The other person does not go along with our ideas. We do not receive their agreement and praise for our cleverness. The article we want eludes us. We do not possess the object we are convinced would make us happy. The person we desire rejects us. We are alone and afraid. All these fears lie at the core of our anger. We convince ourselves that the ideas, the possessions, the person will make us happy. We want it to happen. We expect it to happen. But our expectations fail to materialize. Happiness, once again, eludes us. Instead of looking at ourselves to see if perhaps we were the cause, we blame others for arguing with us, for not giving us what we deserve to have, for not loving us as we hope. And so our fear of not being admired by others, our fear of not having what we believe all others have, our fear of being lonely and alone arises. We strike back defensively at those around us. We strike at those we perceive as having robbed us of what we wanted, what we felt we deserved to obtain, and what we believe others already have. We are afraid. In our fear, we feel vulnerable. In our insecurity and anxiety, our fear gives rise to anger. We may hold our bitterness, resentment, or pain inside, or we may react by striking out at the other person. Either way, we give in to our anger once again. In the same way, our family members give in to anger. Friends and co-workers give in to anger. Those with power and the means to inflict great harm give in to anger. And our world is engulfed in greed and disappointment, in ignorance and delusion, in anger and retaliation. Not just individuals, but groups of people bound together by ethnicity, religion, or politics react in the same way. Greed, fear, anger, retaliation. What is the answer? How do we resolve conflict and attain peace? Wishful thinking will not end the hatred and intolerance in the world. Merely reading books will not solve our problems. Relying on others certainly does not work. The only way to create peace is through hard work and dedication, and by understanding how much is at stake here. We, each one of us, must be dedicated, and we must do the hard work. But we need not discover how to do the work. The Buddhas have already taught us everything we need to know and shown us the path we need to follow. We can take comfort in the knowledge that although Buddhas cannot get us out of the chaos we have created, they will help us as long as we need them to. This they do by continuing to teach us and by showing us the way. We just need to listen and follow their advice. The sutras contain many accounts that show us how to follow the Buddha's guidance. One account tells of a time when the Buddha was staying in Sravasti. An incident was brought to his attention. Close to where he was currently visiting resided a number of monks and nuns. It happened that when some nuns were spoken ill of, one of the monks would become angry. When that monk was spoken ill of, the nuns would become angry. After confirming with the monk that this was accurate, the Buddha advised the monk that he should discipline himself and hold these thoughts. My mind will not change. I will not utter evil words. I will abide with compassion and loving kindness without an angry thought. The Buddha then told the monastics to always remember that even ordinarily calm minds can be disturbed in difficult times. So the monastics needed to train themselves to remain calm, regardless of the situation. The Buddha recounted how there was once a woman who lived in the same city where they currently were. Everyone regarded the woman as gentle and kind. She had a slave named Kali, who was clever and hard-working. Kali wondered whether her mistress was as mild-tempered as she seemed. Might her mistress actually be hiding a bad temper? Perhaps Kali was so efficient that her mistress had not had cause to lose her temper. Kali decided to test her mistress by getting up later than usual one morning. When the mistress saw Kali and asked her why she got up so late, Kali responded that she had no reason. The mistress became angry. The next morning, Kali got up even later. Once more, her mistress questioned her, and once more, Kali replied that she did not have a reason. When this happened, yet again on the third morning, the infuriated mistress struck Kali Bleeding, Callie ran out of the house, crying out that her mistress had hit her because she had gotten up late. Word of what happened spread, and with it the report that the mistress was actually violent and bad-tempered. The Buddha pointed out to the monastics that as long as they did not hear anything disagreeable or unpleasant, most of them were quiet and well behaved. But when they heard something objectionable, such words became a test as to whether they were truly calm and gentle. The Buddha gave an example. Monks may be gentle and kind because they have everything they need. But if they become upset when their needs go unfulfilled, then they are not truly gentle. The Buddha explained to the monks that there are 5 aspects of speech by which others may address them: timely or untimely, true or false, affectionate or harsh, beneficial or unbeneficial, and with a mind of goodwill or with inner hate. In these circumstances, they should train themselves. Our minds will be unaffected, and we will say no evil words. We will remain sympathetic to that person's welfare, with a mind of goodwill and with no inner hate. We will keep pervading him with an awareness imbued with goodwill, and beginning with him, we will keep pervading the all-encompassing world with an awareness imbued with goodwill, abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. The Buddha continued that even if robbers were to carve them up limb by limb with a 2-handled saw, he who became angry even at that would not be doing his bidding. He instructed the monastics that even under such circumstances, they still needed to train themselves to maintain an unaffected mind and continuously pervade the universe with thoughts of goodwill through eliminating hatred and not speaking evil words. The Buddha asked if there were any speech they could not endure. Were they to follow this guidance? They responded that there was none. He then told them that they should often call to mind the simile of the saw, for doing so would bring them happiness and great benefit. The Buddha was teaching them to discipline themselves and to train by keeping this admonition in mind whenever they heard people speaking to them, using speech that was timely or untimely, true or false, affectionate or harsh, beneficial or unbeneficial, or with a mind of goodwill or with inner hate. In other words, They were to train themselves by keeping this admonition in mind at all times. First, the monks were to train so that their minds remained unaffected. To maintain a calm, clear, unperturbed mind, we should not allow that which we see, hear, taste, touch, or think to disturb and thus taint this pure mind. Whatever has been perceived must not move the mind, but be allowed to fall away as an image moving in front of a mirror is reflected, but after passing out of sight is no longer present in the mirror. Also, they were to say no evil words. Like them, we can endeavor to never again say words that are false, harsh, divisive, or enticing. This guideline of saying only what is correct, honest, and beneficial enables us to keep our speech proper. So often, when we are speaking with others, we do not say anything helpful, but instead indulge in idle chatter or frivolous talk. If there is nothing correct, honest, and beneficial to say, it would be wiser to remain quiet. This way, we will not have to regret what we said or wonder how to undo the harm that we had done. When speaking to others, it is also important to find the right time to discuss sensitive matters. Embarrassing or hurting someone because we have chosen the wrong time to speak to them will cause additional suffering. Furthermore, it will do nothing to correct the situation. We need to find both the right words and the right time to say those words. Next, the monks were to remain sympathetic to that person's welfare, with a mind of goodwill and without hate. We need compassion, not just for the abused, but also for the one who is the abuser. One who hurts others does not understand cause and effect, does not understand that by doing this, he or she will continue to be pulled back again and again into the cycle of inflicting and receiving pain. People who hurt others do not understand that the persons they are hurting had in the past hurt them. By retaliating now, they are just perpetuating this cycle of pain. We need sympathy and compassion to understand how both the abuser and the abused are caught in this cycle, unaware of the cause and effect that has brought them to this point. They are unable to act wisely. This is certainly understandable. How many of us have learned about cause and effect? we should understand what is happening when negative things occur in our lives. But when these things happen, how often are we able to remain calm and act wisely? If we are sympathetic to the other's welfare, maintain goodwill, commiseration, and loving kindness for all people, then we will not judge others by saying this person is right and that person is wrong, because we will come to understand that we do not know the true reality, and so will likely mistake wrong for right. But if we are able to regard both friend and foe with sympathy and loving kindness, we will then be able to practice the non-judgmental, unconditional giving of love, and thus wish for all beings to be happy. Next, the monks were to have a mind without hatred, not talking harshly to others, not being sarcastic, not lashing out blindly our ways to control our anger. But we need to go further. Ideally, we should not even hold anger in our hearts. Holding on to our anger will taint everything we do. When we interact with others from a mind of bitterness and frustration, we will inflict our anger on others. In conclusion, the Buddha told the monks that they were to keep pervading the person who was speaking to them out of ill will with an awareness imbued with goodwill. Beginning with that person, they were to keep pervading the all-encompassing world with an awareness imbued with goodwill. Abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, and free from ill will. Initially, we can start this training with those who are close to us, family and friends who care for us. We start here because it is easier for us to love those who love us and are kind to us. It is much more difficult to love those whom we have negative feelings for. Once we establish this mind of compassion and goodwill for family and friends, we can then expand it to include people we casually encounter. People whom we know, who we have no strong positive or negative feelings for. Accomplishing this, we can broaden this mind of benevolence to include people we dislike, and eventually, even those we hate. If we can keep broadening this mind, we will gradually be able to accommodate many others in an ever-widening circle. Then we can open up this caring mind to include all beings throughout the universe. The more encompassing this caring mind is, the greater our respect for all beings and all things will be. Our regard for others will bring us tranquility, because we will not fall back into anger, frustration, or resentment. The Buddha spoke of the simile of the saw to show us that even when something horrible happens, we should not feel aversion toward the one who is hurting another. If we react to an abusive or violent situation with animosity, then we are making the situation worse. We will have allowed another's anger to destroy our peace of mind and rob us of our mind of compassion. If we fall into the habit of proceeding from bitterness and anger, then we will be reacting out of blind, destructive emotion. When we do this, we are not helping anyone, not the other person, not ourselves, because we will become emotionally ensnared in the other's problems. If we can remain calm, we will have a much better chance of successfully utilizing our innate wisdom and thus know how to be truly helpful. Reacting to violence with violence only increases the existing hostility. It may appear to solve the problem at the moment, but actually, we are planting the seeds for more antagonism in the future. If only we had been able to act with wisdom in the past, then we would have already resolved this enmity. But having failed to do so once, we have enabled it to grow. And if we do not resolve it with understanding today, this anger and violence will increase and be even worse the next time it erupts. As the Buddha said, hatred never ceases by hatred, but by the absence of hatred. Often when I speak of this to people, they would ask about a situation where we see someone hurting another person or even attacking someone we love. How does one react in such an emotional situation? This is exactly when we need a calm mind. If we become angry, then we will just charge blindly into the situation and might even begin to behave violently ourselves. With a calm mind, we will have the wisdom to know what to do, even in dangerous circumstances. The sutras have accounts in which the Buddha encountered angry people and violent situations. But he knew the right words to get through to the people to help them stop what they were doing. we do not know the right words because our minds are not calm enough. Only when our minds are tranquil and clear will we be able to access our innate, non-judgmental wisdom so that we will know the right words to speak and the right actions to take. Ideally, when we see someone hurting another, or when someone is trying to harm us, we need to understand that this is a karmic consequence of something that happened in the past. With this understanding of cause and effect, and with the understanding that this body is not I, we would not fight back in emotionally charged situations when attacked by another. In the Diamond Sutra, we read of a bodhisattva who was quietly meditating on a mountain. He was viciously attacked and killed. But due to his level of understanding and his calm, clear mind, he felt no anger, no hatred. I think it is safe to say that most of us are not at this level yet, unable to react as awakened beings. We can defend the other person, or alternatively try to escape without hurting the one who is being violent. We should try to do everything possible not to make the situation worse. The more we practice meditative concentration, the easier it would be to react from our calm mind. We will then be able to know how to react wisely in all situations. But the situation that we are talking about is a hypothetical one that most likely will never happen to us. A much more probable situation would be the one where someone cuts us off as we are driving down the road. This happens all the time in the U.S. I assume it happens occasionally here in Malaysia. Instead of acting out of anger by blowing the horn or trying to speed up to cut the other person off, how might we react? Recently, a young woman in the U.S. told me that she practices patience while driving. She allows herself ample time to arrive at her destination. This enables her to drive at a moderate speed. If someone cuts her off, no problem. Not in a rush. She is able to remain unaffected by the carelessness or rudeness of others. She might arrive at her destination a few minutes later than if she had been speeding and weaving in and out of traffic. But it is worth it because she arrives in a happy, calm state of mind. These are the situations we encounter, life's daily annoyances and frustrations. Whether it be the rudeness of a clerk in the store, the telemarketer we cannot get rid of, or the person at work who always argues with us. These are the real-life circumstances that we encounter countless times during the day. These are the very times that we should practice what the Buddha taught. If, in small everyday situations, we can start responding from the mind that is not swayed by emotions, the mind of sympathy and love, that is free of hatred and bitterness, we will be planting good seeds. These good seeds will mature into good conditions. With good conditions, we can continue to practice. Our practice of morality and of respecting and not harming others will further increase our good conditions. With such conditions, the bad seeds will not have the opportunity to mature, and we will not find ourselves in violent situations. Following the Buddha's advice, we can strive to never lose our clear, calm mind and never utter evil words, but instead treat others with a mind of sympathy and compassion, letting go of our anger. We will permeate the entire world with an awareness imbued with concern, unreserved, infinite, and free from hostility and ill will. Encountering situations that are potentially upsetting and that could make us angry, we should not give in to our destructive emotions. Our habitual recourse to that anger has resulted in the quarrels, fights, and wars that are engulfing our world today. Instead of mindlessly cultivating anger, recall the simile of the saw. If we can keep training our minds to be serene and to empathize with others, we will gradually uncover our wisdom and know how to be of help to others in any situation. Remember that upholding a calm, clear mind is usually easier to accomplish when we are not emotionally involved and when we do not have anything at stake. As we accomplish this in minor, everyday events, we will see that it works. This will give us the confidence to apply this same teaching in more trying situations. As with everything worthwhile, this will take time and require a lot of patience. But with time, we will develop this mind of serenity, commiseration, and compassion. In another account from the sutras, we learn of one time when the Buddha was in Jeddah Grove Monastery. He asked the monastics how they would explain the three poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance to monks who followed other teachings. The monastics replied that they wished to explain as the Buddha would. So would he please teach them how to best explain these negative states of mind? He replied that greed arises from thinking of pleasant objects and situations in a mistaken way. Once greed has arisen, this thinking of pleasant things will cause it to intensify. Through our own personal experience, we can see what the Buddha meant. When we see an object or watch others enjoying an activity that we view as enjoyable, as pleasant, we want to own the object or undergo a similar experience. We want to possess a newer model of something we already own. We want to go to the same vacation spot a coworker visited. We want to indulge ourselves because we feel we deserve it, or because we want to cheer ourselves up after something disappointing has happened. And so we crave things and experiences. But as the Buddha explained, craving leads to suffering, for craving inexorably leads to more craving. Unquenchable, it grows like an addiction. The more we have and the more we experience, the more we want. Our ever-increasing greed results in our lives becoming more stressful as our craving for objects and experiences far surpasses our ability to obtain them. And so we fall deeper and deeper into suffering. Why does all this happen? It happens because we mistakenly think that pleasant things, be they material objects or experiences, will make us happy. But happiness is a mental state. Happiness is not a quality inherent in material possessions or experiences. Whether or not something makes us happy depends on what we tell ourselves. As Shakespeare wrote in Hamlet, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. That is, it is our thinking that makes us happy or sad. We can tell ourselves that to be happy we need more pleasant objects and situations. Or we can tell ourselves that wanting more inevitably leads to more wanting and thus to more suffering. Next, the Buddha explained that anger arises from thinking of unpleasant objects and situations in a mistaken way. Once anger arises as the result of such mistaken thinking, it increases. Again, our personal experience will bear this out. When we see an object or occurrence that we view as unpleasant, feelings of resentment, bitterness, and anger can easily arise. We want the experience to stop. We want to be rid of the undesirable object. We want the annoying person to go away. If only these would happen, then we would be happy. But such thinking, as the Buddha said, is mistaken. Just as the presence of objects and experiences does not necessarily make us happy, neither does their absence. Attempting to satisfy our emotional desires will not lead to happiness. In truth, wanting to stop that which is unpleasant only leads to more wanting, more emotional reactions, more turmoil, not happiness. Not yet realizing this, we continue to buy tickets to get back on our emotional roller coaster of wanting, attainment, disappointment, and anger. What should we do instead of falling back into this negative pattern? Previously, we learned of the Buddha urging the monastics to hold the thought, "My mind will never be shaken." In other words, our minds should remain stable and focused. We should neither feel attached to pleasant sensations, nor feel averse to those that are unpleasant. If we can accomplish this, we will remain content with what we have and calm in any circumstances. Content and calm, we will know how to act wisely. Our anger will gradually diminish and eventually cease to arise. The Buddha concluded by explaining that ignorance arises from wrong thoughts. Once ignorance has arisen, these wrong thoughts will cause ignorance to intensify. Understanding this, one would know how best to view properly both pleasant and unpleasant happenings. If one were able to act from this understanding, then greed and anger should not arise. And if they did, one would be able to eliminate the greed and overcome the anger. If one looks at life properly, ignorance should not arise. But if it should, one would be able to overcome it. Here the Buddha spoke about wrong thoughts. Wrong thoughts are our personal opinions which arise in response to external sensory stimuli. Relying on this sensory input, we think about what we have encountered and draw conclusions based on what we have seen, heard, smelled, tasted, and touched. Then we begin to label some things good and others bad, some pleasant, others unpleasant. In other words, we begin to discriminate, seeing duality in everything. The fundamental flaw in this process is the reliance on our senses. What we fail to factor in is the fact that our breadth of exposure is minimal at best, and that our senses may well be faulty. Consider the Buddha's account of a group of men blind from birth trying to describe an elephant. Each of the men was taken to a different part of the elephant: its head, an ear, a tusk, its trunk, its stomach, a foot, its tail, and the tuft of its tail. The blind men, in turn, said the elephant was like a pot, a basket, a plowshare, a plow, a storehouse, a pillar, a pestle, and a brush. The men then began to argue with one another, and even came to blows over the matter. These reasonable but limited answers were the result of knowing only a part of the truth, not the whole. And sadly, like those blind men, most of us also encounter only a part of the truth. We too cling stubbornly to our own viewpoints, convinced that we have all the facts, and thinking that we have all the facts, and feeling confident of our conclusions, we reject the views of others. Thus our ignorance arises from our wrong thoughts. The manifestation of our ignorance is our attachment to wrong thoughts, and this inevitably intensifies our ignorance. On another day, a monk who followed other teachings asked Venerable Ananda, what happens to those who give in to the three poisons? Ananda replied that those who give in to greed, anger, and ignorance will themselves become victims of those self-same poisons. Thus they harm themselves, not just others, and must face the painful outcomes of what they have done. Since greed will lead one to have impure thoughts and to engage in flawed behavior, those who rid themselves of greed do not undergo these painful outcomes. When our minds are impure, our thoughts arise from greed, anger, and ignorance. They also arise from arrogance, our belief that in some way we are superior to others. But the Buddha explained to us that we all have the same true nature. So while our past karmas result in our having lived different lives, and those lives may appear to be better than others, our current lives are only a tiny snapshot of our innumerable lifetimes. In this lifetime, we may be smarter or more privileged than other people. But these roles could be reversed in our next lifetime. And suddenly, those whom we deemed inferior to us will be superior. And our arrogance will come back to haunt us. As is said, pride goeth before the fall. Our thoughts may also arise from doubt. For example, we may doubt that we have the same true nature as a Buddha, and thus doubt our ability to, like him, awaken. We may doubt that causality functions all around us and within us, throughout all time and space. We may doubt that the mind of the Buddhas and the mind of all beings are all pervasive, that we are all one. Finally, our thoughts may arise from delusion, our belief in erroneous ideas. Due to all this greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, doubt, and delusion, our minds are filled with wandering, discriminating thoughts. We get caught up in thoughts of liking and disliking, of good or bad, favorable or unfavorable situations. No longer calm, no longer pure. Our minds are constantly affected by our environment. In this agitated, emotional state, we may or may not act out of good intentions. But even if we act out of our good intentions, they will often backfire because our logic was faulty to begin with. So we end up harming others and ourselves, mistaking right for wrong and wrong for right. We make bad decisions and must suffer the outcomes our actions have wrought. Not because someone judges this to be so, but because causality, cause and effect, is a universal, natural law. Our good intentions may mitigate the outcomes to some degree, but we will still have to undergo what we have brought about through our impure behavior. When we have overcome our greed, anger, and ignorance, we will not commit such offenses because we will no longer be deluded. We will no longer mistake wrong for right. Our minds will be clear and calm. Having let go of attachments, arrogance, and selfishness, we will no longer act from discriminations that result from faulty conclusions drawn from sensory input. Instead, we will act from our inherent wisdom. Ananda further explained to the monk that those who give in to greed do not understand what is meant by benefiting self, others, and all. Again, we can see from our experience that our craving is usually of a selfish nature. We want something either for ourselves or for those close to us. The satisfaction of this craving is a temporary sense indulgence that brings us short-lived happiness. The only way to truly benefit others is to awaken. In other words, to transcend the cycle of rebirth, whereby we obtain lasting liberation and genuine happiness. Unless we free ourselves from rebirth, we will not be liberated. As long as we remain within the cycle of rebirth, we are bound by craving and ignorance, and we will not find true liberation or happiness. In benefiting others, we move beyond thoughts of self to those of others. At this point, we will realize that all beings, not just ourselves, wish to eliminate suffering and attain happiness. With this realization, we will want to help others accomplish this. We will begin by wishing that those we love and care for would attain happiness. Gradually, we will keep expanding this wish until ultimately we wish for all beings to be free from suffering and attain happiness. When we shift the focus of our wish for happiness and liberation away from just ourselves, we will begin to think less of our own happiness. Instead of looking at everything in a self-centered way, we will transform our thoughts into those of caring for others. We will stop asking what is in it for us, and will instead ask, how can we help others? The concepts of benefiting others and benefiting ourselves occur at a lower level of realization. When our understanding reaches a higher level, we will realize that all beings are one, and there is no duality between self and others. To benefit one being is to benefit all beings. Therefore, to benefit others is to benefit oneself. Realizing this interconnectivity among all beings will enable us to realize that we do not need to worry about self-benefit, because when we help the whole, we help ourselves. So there is no need to worry about me. The more we can wholeheartedly aspire to help all beings, the more goodness we will generate. This goodness will in turn create favorable conditions that will enable us to help others. It is our craving that causes our suffering, because craving blinds us to reality and disturbs our pure mind. Leaving our calm, clear state, we become embroiled in a cycle of wanting, obtaining, and then more wanting. The more agitated we become, the less we are able to concentrate, and the deeper we bury our wisdom inside us. Not able to reach our wisdom, we fall prey to ignorance and delusion. We become more afflicted, our worries increase. But this does not have to happen. We can be free of greed, anger, and ignorance through moral self-discipline. With moral discipline, our minds will be more settled, and we will be able to achieve meditative concentration. As this meditative concentration enables us to gain more control over our thoughts, and consequently our emotions, we will begin to touch our innate wisdom. As we continue to act from that inherent wisdom, we will gradually rid ourselves of greed, overcome anger, and uproot our ignorance. Our minds will remain clear and calm in all situations, and we will gradually leave suffering behind and attain lasting liberation and happiness. Amitabha. Please repeat the dedication of merit after me. May the merits and virtues accrued from this work adorn the Buddha's pure land, repay the four kindnesses above, and relieve the sufferings of those in the three realms below. May those who see or hear of this Bring forth the heart of compassion and understanding. And at the end of this life, be born together in the land of ultimate bliss. Namo Amitabha.
三宝弟子等，愿以此功德，回向病者，Evelyn Blender，减轻他多生今生三业障，众业轻受，轻业平安，解冤解结，离苦得乐，破迷开悟，发菩提心，一向专念，阿弥陀佛，同生净土，同源种子，南无阿弥陀佛。 一切法师。恭送法师回了。
Not necessary.
阿弥陀佛。